Hey there. We're just flooded with information all the time, right? And making a clear, correct decision in the middle of all that noise, well, it's one of the most vital skills you can have. So today, we're going to dive into a framework for thinking, something to help you cut through that noise and make choices you can actually stand by.
But before we get into it, let me ask you something. Are you really sure you're the one making your own decisions? Like, are you really in the driver's seat of your own mind? Or are your choices being kind of shaped by that endless scroll, the viral videos, and just the constant chatter from social media? It's a tough question, but it's one we all need to ask ourselves. So, to see just how easily our judgment can get hijacked, let's go way back. We're going to look at a classic story from this ancient Indian collection of fables called the Panchatantra.
Okay, so picture this. A pundit, right? A wise, learned man. He's just bought himself this beautiful, healthy calf. He's walking home, probably feeling pretty good about his purchase, and then he crosses paths with a group of thieves who have this really clever plan.
So, the first thief walks up to him, puts on a serious face, and says, "Sir, that's a fine looking goat. How much did you pay for it?" And the pundit's, well, he's confused. He's like, "Friend, this is clearly a calf, not a goat." The thief just kind of laughs it off and walks away. But right there, that's the first little seed of doubt being planted. A little further down the road, boom, a second thief stops him. "Wow, what a fat goat. I mean, it almost looks like a calf." And now the pundit is starting to get really worried. He's looking closely at his animal. By the time a third guy repeats the same line, man, his confidence just completely shatters.
So, by the time the fourth thief, the real mastermind of this whole thing, comes along and offers to buy this goat, the pundit is totally convinced he's been ripped off. He's thinking to himself, I better sell this thing for whatever I can get before I get home and look like a total fool. And just like that, he sells his valuable calf for the price of a goat, all because of his simple, repeated lie. You see how this ancient story is a perfect mirror for our world today? I mean, the pundit was fooled by just a few guys on the road. We are surrounded by thousands, even millions of voices on social media. It's like a WhatsApp university where everyone has an opinion. If we're not careful, we can be just as easily convinced that our calf is a goat.
And look, don't think for a second this only happens to gullible people. In the epic Mahabharata, even the brilliant warrior guru Dronacharya, he was brought down not by a weapon, but by a piece of manipulated information. This guy was literally invincible on the battlefield, but he was vulnerable to a lie.
So here's what happened. He was told his son, Ashwathama, was killed. He trusted the source, but the full truth, that it was an elephant named Ashwathama, was deliberately drowned out by the loud sound of a conch shell. That single piece of incomplete, totally manipulated information, it caused him to drop his weapons in grief, and that led directly to his defeat.
So, if even the greats can be tricked like this, what's our first line of defense? How do we protect our own decision-making? Well, it all begins with our mindset before we even start looking at the facts.
And that first step is neutrality, or in Sanskrit, tatasthatha. It's pretty simple, really. It's the commitment to not take a side before you've done the work. Before you even begin, you have to literally tell yourself, okay, I don't know the answer yet. I am not for this, and I am not against it. I am just here to learn. Because let's be real, our biggest problem is that we usually do the exact opposite. We form an opinion based on our gut feelings or who we hang out with, and then we go hunting for facts and arguments that prove we were right all along. But that's not really thinking, is it? That's just self-validation. Okay, so once we've committed to being neutral, the next step is gathering information. But here's the thing. It's not just about getting facts. It's about getting the right kind of facts and getting them in the right way. And that really comes down to two key things. First, you need adequate inputs. Don't be like Dronacharya and make a huge decision based on a half-heard sentence. You gotta get the full story. And second, you need diverse inputs. This is so important. You absolutely have to seek out the other side of the argument. Let me tell you a story. There's this young boy, and he is furious with his father for not letting him go on a school trip. All his friends are going. He's totally convinced his dad doesn't love him, even saying something heartbreaking like, "I think he just found me in a drain." From his point of view, his dad's decision is just cruel and unfair. But then, you hear the father's side of the story, and the entire picture just flips. The boy had a serious, undiagnosed heart condition, and the doctor had strictly forbidden any travel. The father couldn't even bring himself to tell his son because he didn't want to scare him. So that decision, it wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of quiet, desperate protection.
Okay, so we've started with neutrality, we've gathered diverse information. Now we get to the analysis part. And this is where we have to be super aware of the common mental shortcuts and errors, these judgment traps, that can lead us completely astray.
So the first trap is all about proportionality, or a lack of it. You know, just because someone asks you for a pen in class, it doesn't mean they're planning your wedding. We do this all the time, right? We take a tiny piece of information and blow it up into this massive conclusion. The judgment has to fit the evidence.
Next up is what's called illicit generalization. This happens when one bad experience makes you decide that all boys are like that or all girls are cheaters. You're literally taking a sample size of one and applying it to billions of people. It's just a lazy and honestly a dangerous way to see the world.
And finally, there's binary thinking. This is the good versus evil, right versus wrong trap. But in reality, people and policies are rarely 100% good or 100% bad. They exist on a spectrum in the shades of gray. A wise person doesn't just pick a side. They analyze the percentages and see all the complexity.
And all this leads us to the final and maybe the most difficult piece of the whole puzzle. Because it's not just about making a good decision today, it's about what you do tomorrow. Your decisions, your opinions, they're not supposed to be set in stone. The true sign of wisdom isn't always being right. It's having the strength and the humility to say, you know what, based on new information, I was wrong. Changing your mind isn't a weakness. It's proof that you're still growing, still learning.
Check this out. The 20th century philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein wrote this book that made him world famous. Years later, after thinking about it more, he wrote a second book that basically argued against his first one. He was, in effect, telling the world, yeah, that famous thing I wrote, it's all nonsense. He dismissed himself. Now that is the ultimate intellectual courage.
So I'll leave you with this. After everything we've talked about, from starting with neutrality to having the courage to change your mind, what is one long-held belief you have? One strong opinion that you're willing to really re-examine today?